All right, we're recording now. So if everybody was fine with having their cameras on, then keep your cameras on. I would go on to the next person. Hi, I'm Elena. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm just listening as a facilitator at the new ALC, waiting to do flying squads this summer. Oh, flying squads in the summer, that's way better than the winter, in my opinion. I wish we did them in the summer. Okay, I'm Natalie. I'm eating right now. Sorry, that's fine, Natalie. But I am a grad student and a researcher in childhood studies who is interested in child's information learning outside of school. And I am very interested in multi-ages spaces and learning that takes place in that context. Okay. Oh, I forgot to say I'm Philly these days, and my program is in Cadman, New Jersey. We have a lot of people from Philly today. We have Allison. I work at I work at SDE Center, ages 11 to 19. Interested to hear about how flying squads work, especially when I'm connected with an existing center. That's nice. We have Randolph. Sorry, Randolph. I'm Randolph, and I'm a learner at the Children's Community St. Louis. I'm very I'm very close to starting my own flying squad. I'm here to ask questions as they come. That's nice. Here we go. Hey, will you be pinning panelists? I don't think I'm pinning panelists. I'm going to just have it in the speakers gallery view. Okay, we have hi all. I'm Sarah, facilitator at the Children's Community, an SDE space in St. Louis. I'm also parent to three unschooled kids, 13, 10, and 6, one of whom is particularly interested in getting a squad into flight here. That's nice to hear. Okay, we have Alicia. Hi, or is it Alicia?
Alicia.
Alicia, thank you.
No problem.
Hi, I'm Alicia. I worked at, well, we have so many people here. This is awesome. Hi, I'm Alicia. Worked at a Democratic Free School in Dallas in 2016. Now work at the foundation. Now work at a foundation to transform education. Just love the idea of flying squads. Was so excited when I first read about them online. Would be curious about everyone's experiences on them. Well, Alicia, we will be talking about our experiences of flying squad today. We have Cora, if I'm saying that right. If I get any pronunciations wrong, please let me know because I tend to pronounce my words wrong. Okay, we have Cora. I'm Cora, and I'm also a learner at the children's community. I was just interested in I was just interested in learning more about flying squads. Okay, that's nice to hear. We have Nata. How can somebody pronounce this name for me? Natania?
It's Natanya.
Natanya. Thank you very
No
much.
worries.
Hello, everyone. I'm Natanya, and I'm here with my 5.5-year-old Zara. We're super curious to learn about flying squads from the flying squad kids here today, and excited about the potential for flying squads here in New Jersey in the future. New Jersey Flying Squad. New Jersey seems like an interesting place to have one of those. Uh, Here we go. I am Michaela, if I'm getting that right. I'm Michaela. I'm in Texas, and I love using the city in non-car related ways. I would I would love, or no, I would like to organize a flying squad for my young people in the community. That's nice to hear. Because a lot of cities aren't walkable, but when you go to the parts that are, flying squads become really nice. They become a nice little exercise to do. So that's all the introductions we had in the chat. Oh wait, now we have Emily. that just came in. I'm Emily. I spend many days at the children's community in St. Louis as a facilitator. I'm also a mom of three unschoolers. Uh, eager to learn more about the support flying squads. About eager to learn about more about and support flying squads. Okay, there we go. All right, that's all the entries so far. Then we have Nicholas. Let me read that real quick. Hey everyone, my name is Nicholas. I'm here to learn more. I'm here to learn about flying squads and maybe hear about people's experiences with them. Nicholas, you came to the right panel. This is the panel for you, Nicholas. All right. That's all the chats for now. If there's more later on, I'll read those later. But I think we could start now. So I think we should we start with questions or experiences? Or you can question us about our experiences. So if anybody has any questions about like how flying squads work or what you particularly do in them, or if you're just here curious about flying squad. Corey says, what is a flying squad? So does anybody want to answer this question? Or because I've been speaking a lot. I think anybody could come up and answer if you know what a flying squad is. Or do you want me? Okay. Okay, I'll answer with this. So what is a flying squad? So from my experiences, what I would define a flying squad is it's usually a group, of kids with a facilitator, and you usually go around your area for us, we go around parts of the city, and you just, you do what the kids want to do that day. So then you like learn about your environment. You learn a lot of things. Like if you haven't, like personally, I didn't take a lot of public transportation growing up. So when I finally joined flying squads, I actually learned how to take public transportation. And you learn a lot of things that you're gonna need to know, growing up, like public transportation, how to roam the streets, how to interact with people, because you interact with a lot of people out when you're out about in a flying squad. And there's more to it, but that's like the general consensus of what a flying squad is. If anybody else has like anything they particularly like know about flying squads, you can put that in. Maybe get a
I
yeah,
think Zoe wants to.
yeah, Zoe.
Yeah.
Please, you can have the spotlight. Wait, is it just me or we can't hear her?
We can't hear you, Zoe.
It's okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so flying squad is democratic, and so everybody votes, or no, not every, in our flying squad, we vote on what we want to do. Other flying squads have their own ways of decision making, but the idea is to give everyone an equal voice. I know some people do just like consensus-based communication, talking, stuff like that, but democracy is an important thing for us. Maybe if other people want to share how like they figure out what to do for the day, that would be cool.
Yeah, I will say that's a big part. One of the distinguishing factors of a flying squad is that we don't have a plan in mind before it starts. We all gather together that morning and we're collaboratively coming up with how we're going to spend our time together, however long it is. Our day is 4 hours. Some days are a little bit longer. And then there's usually some sort of like brainstorming or ritual moment. Like we learned from Brooklyn Flying Squad. So we use adaptations of their rituals, right? So we have a scribe who records people's like reports for the day, and in that is also like your proposals of what we do for the day. Then the scribe takes all that information and throws it out there for people to vote on, and whatever has the most tally marks is what we end up doing with our day. And as facilitators, we typically opt out of the voting portion and just, but do feel free to like throw in ideas when it's helpful.
I'm not sure that's like, I opt out the voting too, but I'm not sure that's an all facilitators thing. But yeah,
Yeah, good point. I'm saying I as a facilitator opt out.
as a facilitator, I just go into the voting when it's particularly impossible to figure out how much more, like when there's like, it's really tied, then I go in, but normally I don't go in. I think Thomas wants to speak.
This is completely unrelated to the panel, but Zoe, is your shirt a green screen? That's great.
That's awesome.
Okay, is there any other questions? Any other questions we have? I did see that. Okay, can a facilitator and some flying squads role play that what a morning flying squad would look like? If y'all think that's cheesy, you can decline. So what would a morning flying squad look like? So
You guys wanna I can do, you guys want to do it?
we could like act out what a
Ooh.
flying squad is like, a typical morning is like. So I would get off the bus half asleep and I would stand at the library, and then usually a lot of people are late. That's a big thing about flying squad. People are late.
Man, our
That's
squad
just
is
I saw our squad.
extremely
People
late,
just
yeah.
get late. And then we see you cross the street, and I'm like, hey, Issa. And then you do your typical, that's your typical Issa way. And then everybody gets there. And we usually wait till like maybe like 5 people get, like 5, 6 people get to the library.
We do have an extremely large flying squad.
Yeah, we do have one of the larger flying squads.
Yeah, I
that's
think
true.
we have like, goes from 13 to 10 depending on the day.
Yeah, it's like insane. And then we personally our like scribe stuff, we used to do what we used to say what we did last week, but it's off the hinges now. It's like we do whatever we write whatever we want in there now. It's insane. We be writing stories in the was it the journal. So we wait till people get there and then we do our vote. So we would say, Zoe, what do you want to do today? And she would probably say something like, what do you want to do today, Zoe? What would you want to do on a flying squad day, a typical flying squad day?
What would you want to do?
I would want to go to Pier 6
Okay.
or a park. That's what somebody would say. Maybe me. That's probably what I would say. Then everybody would vote. We have our little tally. We'd be like,
Zoe wrote where they want to go in the chat.
I would want to go to
yeah,
Governor.
you
You
definitely
do
would go
like Governor's Island a lot, or Chinatown. So it would be like, okay, who wants to go to Pier 6? People raise their hand. We have B wants to go to Pier 6, and Gene wants to go to Pier 6. So you have 2 votes for Pier 6. Who wants to go to Governor's Island? B wants to also go to Governor's Island. Gene wants to go to Governor's Island, but Issa also wants to go to Governor's Island. So we're going to Governor's Island today. And then we'll probably take a ferry, and we just figure out something there to do. We either play, maybe a card game. Maybe there's a park at Governor's Island, so we'll probably go there. And we would just basically like explore the island and do things of that such. And then because the days used to be shorter, so that would be like the only thing we would do that day. But maybe we could squeeze in something else. So maybe we could go to Pier 6 after Governor's Island.
Yeah, now we have a 7 hour. Yeah.
The scribe in the journal can be a facilitator or a young person. Same for the counting of votes and reading out our options. That's true. Is cost factor in decision making? Do you have a budget or is it free options? Usually we don't like ask for things to pay. Like last week we did go to a board game cafe and you did have to pay for that. But usually we don't go to things you have to pay for unless it's like somewhere you get food. Like over here we get boba a lot. So we say, let's go get boba. And usually people either pay on their own or we have like a budget sometimes. Like sometimes you just like you can't say, let's go to a nightclub. Like you just can't say that. That's way too much money. And I don't think you can even go to a nightclub in 10 a.m. in the morning. So do you ever collaborate with other communities, with other community groups, or even adult organizations on a project / activity? Does anybody want to answer this one?
We don't. We typically, because like I said, the spontaneity is a key component for us for squad. So we're not typically committing to an activity that we've organized ahead of time. And really, this is time for them to decide how they want to spend their day. And while I'm sure many of these people do engage in that sort of thing, volunteering with community groups, and participating in long-term projects, that's not typically how we use a flying squad day.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I haven't been in our group for very long, but I never had a day where we do. So
Do you ever collaborate with other communities, groups? I don't think we do that much. I don't recall doing that.
I had requests before from parents being like, would you like to go do this? Would the squad be interested in go to whatever, like go to the circus? And because of the spontaneity and what do you want to do, and that being a key factor, and the fact that community building is a giant aspect, I normally opt out of those things, because that would mean that we wouldn't be able to say no to that on that day. And it's all about what they want that day, how they feel. But I'm not.
Zoe says about costs, we are part of a homeschool center called Brooklyn Apple Academy. And if we go to a place that costs money, Issa can send the bill to the director of Brooklyn Apple Academy. That is true. And he will pay for it with some funds we have somewhere. That's true. We do have like
I mean, we have
we have like kind of a reimbursement thing like that where we can like get reimbursed for some things we do.
That is not something we have in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, I don't think many
We
flying
try to
squads
do kind of like Josiah mentioned, we try to stick to free stuff. We also try to be mindful of like how many mall days we take, just because everybody has different access to cash, and like we don't want
That's
to
true.
focus on things that cost a lot of money. We just talked about that this week. Our mornings also look a little bit different. Does anyone in our group want to talk about it?
Yeah, I want to hear about like what the mornings are. I didn't know
We don't
they
really
were like,
vote.
really
We
different.
just kind of throw out ideas and figure out how to make it all work if we can. But our city is also smaller. Maybe that's part of it.
So basically in the mornings, we just like throw out ideas, and whoever wants to do what we do first, and then we kind of just plan the day out from there.
It's kind of similar to ours. Okay.
I'm Magnolia's mom. She's in the Grand Rapids Flying Squad, and they chat a lot. They have a group chat that they chat a lot and talk about what they want to do. And also they just are talking all the time.
Our Brooklyn Flying Squad does have a chat too. Raj, you was gonna say something?
Just saying, yeah, do the Grand Rapids Flying Squad and the Brooklyn Flying Squad. I'm not sure who else is here. Does everyone pretty much use public transportation to get around?
Yeah, that's usually what we do.
Do kids like pay for their own transportation for those days?
Some homeschoolers they have here in New York, we have student metro cards. So some homeschoolers use that. Some of them we let them, use the public transportation. But like you usually can pay for your own public transportation because it's not like necessarily expensive.
I see some questions in the chat too.
Yeah,
like
we're
about how
trying to
to
get. Do you want to like answer some questions?
Sure. I see somebody asking, how does the membership work in a flying squad? Is there an application process or a cap on how many people can be in it? Is there any sort of commitment for attendance? I can answer for us in the Philly Flying Squad. We do have like a quick application, mostly telling us who you are and why you want to participate in this, but we're really looking to screen for, and that is our squad is only 10 and up. So we want to know that these are older people, just because that's the group of people who's currently engaged in it. And that you kind of understand what unschooling or self-directed education is all about, because it wouldn't be the right group for someone who's looking for like a homeschool and enrichment program in our case. So we're looking for that. We don't currently have a cap on attendance, but if it got too big and gangly, I can certainly see instituting one. And no, we don't have a commitment for attendance, but we do have people sign up for like a month at a time. So they're paying for that month. Do other squads want to talk about how they handle joining in applications?
I was just going to point out something maybe that hasn't come up yet, is that I think those of us in flying squads see it as a collective and not really like a program. Like there's no prescription for this is how it runs. And we kind of each get to figure out how it runs in our community. And it's wild how many similarities come up between the squads. Like I think that's pretty cool. We often have similar interests in very different places. But yeah, so like we don't have an application. We just get emails and word of mouth. People call and they're interested. And we have 11 or 12 of us now. And that's about as big as we want to be right now. And I think that's a decision we made as a group, because it feels really big walking around with that many people, and your presence is big already as a group of teenagers walking into a space in the middle of the day. But yeah, we kind of like Jean, age is kind of a suggested thing, but we kind of take a look at like, will they be a good fit? Usually we give people a day. We meet for 4 hours. So sometimes we'll invite people to come for 2 hours in the middle of our day, so we can kind of talk beforehand about we're going to welcome somebody new in today and see what they think, what we think, and then we get a chance to talk afterwards too, as far as like a trial day goes. And then yeah,
I have a question for the people, all the squads, the people of the squads here. Are all the squads 10 up at this point, or are the younger people and or mostly teens, or no? Yeah, because I know that in the past the squad, I'm in Brooklyn Flying Squad for like 2 years, but in the past they were younger. So I want to know if there's mostly right now are teenagers.
I know there's a variety of squads right now. I know Greenville, South Carolina has younger people. We are in Grand Rapids. We kind of focus like 11 to 16 is our age range, I think, right now.
We're 10 to 16 in Philly.
I'm gonna read another question like from the top because there's so many coming through. Yes, I will do that. Okay, hold on. Did we ever, okay. Do you ever have conflicts around safety? Like if majority wants to go to a rail yard and hang out on the railroad tracks, a place that isn't made for the public, but still accessible, but could be unsafe. That's kind of like because we did go to a rail yard the other flying squad day. And I can see why some people wouldn't want to go. We didn't really have a conflict on safety here, but like we did hang around the railroad tracks a lot. And eventually one of the trains started moving, but like nobody was like unsafe. So I think maybe it's because our group is old enough to know that we can take care of ourselves, that we were like too big on safety. But yeah, I don't think. Yeah, Zoe, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think flying squad is a great place to test your boundaries and your limits. And so I think when we first went there, people were like, oh, is this the kind of like railroad tracks that you get electrocuted on? This is kind of
That
scary.
that was
Yeah.
true.
And they were not the kind you get electrocuted on because we touched them. And then, but like people like maybe climb trees higher than they have before. And flying squad is a great place to test boundaries because I think we realize our bodies actually can take a lot more than we think they can, and that we can do a lot of stuff that we didn't think we were able to. And so just like from as we were being on the tracks, we were like, oh, this feels okay. And I think we were always checking in also and like is like is this all right? One time like we let another person come with us and he was like not great at all. He was totally overstepping our boundaries. And so after he left, we were like, wow, that did not feel good. Like let's
we're not doing that
again.
ever again.
Yeah, I have to go now.
Bye, Zoe.
Bye.
Zoe.
The rest of the panel goes great.
Thank you. But like, yeah, the thing about the boundaries, like, that's true, because I used to be a very cautious person. But then like I sprained my ankle twice on flying squad days. And I realized it's not actually like that bad getting hurt. So like I know that my body, I put a lot more trust in my body now than I used to. Let's see. What do flying?
There is some, there is sometimes, there are different, in a space of, there is different people with different, they are comfortable with different safety things.
That's true. Like,
but as we are right now, everybody knows how to respect the other person's boundaries. And I
That's
think that's
true.
why we agree to go to places that are a little more risky, because like there's no pushing
yeah, we're not pushing anybody
the
to like.
person to do something that they are not comfortable with. I think that's how that works.
Let's see. Somebody asked how many days in a week will flying squads meet? That's different for everybody's flying squad. Like even ours, we used to have 2 days in our week, but now it's just one because our numbers dwindled a little bit. So like it's different for everybody. I don't even think some people do it weekly, right? Some people do it like, so like what's your guys' days like? How many days do you have in like your weeks?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So it's not exactly that our numbers dwindled. It's that everyone started going on one day and they all picked the same day.
Oh, that's
And then
true.
we had nobody on any other days. So that's why we only have one day.
You went on that dreaded Friday, didn't you?
I did.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Do any other flying squads wants to say something? Like they meet
Yeah.
more? Did they
'Cause this is like,
like how they feel about safety? All those things. Like
because it might be different.
it's
Like,
probably different, yes.
yeah, Julian, he has something to say. He has something to say.
Yeah.
Wait, you went back on mute. You went back on
I
mute.
can't you're in yeah. You're on mute. Mute.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. You can hear you now.
Okay. Currently in Grand Rapids, we are just doing one day, but I would like it to be more, but I don't think that would be, I didn't think that would be too much on Annie, but personally, I wish it was like twice a week, maybe once on a weekend and once on a weekday.
I could just feel that. Because on weekends you can, I feel like on weekends you can do a lot more things.
Yeah, I think Magnolia has got a hand up too. Do you want to add something?
Oh yeah, because I can't see everybody's hands up.
So back to the danger thing. I think our squad has a lot of mixed opinions on what danger is, because some of us like climb on libraries and stuff, and the others tell us that there's security cameras. So we'll have very different boundaries when it comes to danger, but I think that we have it figured out.
Like the very first day when somebody was climbing on the outside of a bridge, and I was like, is this what I'm in for? Yeah, we take risks and talk about if they feel like too much for some of us. I've learned new limits of my own patience too. And one other
There's
cool
some mutual
Seattle
agreements
does.
somewhere.
Seattle does do a second day, and they have an evening squad, which I think is, they might be the only ones doing that. They meet from like 4 to 7, which is really cool too. And I would love to do more days too, Julie, and I agree with you there.
We've had people on our flying squad has done suggestions for evening flying squads. I wonder how that goes out for people. That sounds interesting. Let's see. Somebody said, "What do you flyers like most about flying squad?" I think my favorite thing is like, I don't know, like being out the house a lot and getting my boundaries pushed. That's why I like most about flying squad. Because I do a lot of things I would probably never do if I didn't go to flying squad. So if anybody else wants to put their input, what they like most about their flying squads, you could say that now.
Can I ask my question out loud? I put it in the chat. Can I ask it?
Yes, that would be great.
But the question was, I'd like to hear from each flyer if they want to share. What was the most like challenging day or moment for you during a flying squad day? So you could folks can answer that. And then I added a second part, which you don't, is like, does majority rule work? Like when you vote, like, is there someone who feels like the squad never goes to where they want to go? Like those feelings come up too. So I would love to hear from kind of each.
That is a
If y'all
really good
could-
question, that majority rule thing. We had a whole entire like discussion and meeting about that. We had like a whole meeting about that one time because people were feeling left out. But a tough day. Let's see. Because all of our days is pretty mixed. Like some people can enjoy them a lot, some people can not. But personally, I can't really recall one of my toughest days. but I do want to talk more about that majority rule thing, because that was a really big problem at some point, because we have some people that can like really express their ideas, like, let's go to this junkyard, guys. We can, and they can like pitch it good, like, let's go to this junkyard. It has all this cool stuff. You can do all these cool things. But then when we get there, it's not actually that good, and nobody really like enjoys it. But then we have one person in particular I can think about, and she usually has like her ideas, but she like says them for like once, and people barely vote for it. And like she usually doesn't get to go to the places she wants to go to. But like we have other people that can like pitch their ideas, say why it's good, say what you could do there. So like we had a whole like thing about how could we fix this like minority vote thing. And I don't know if we really like fixed it just yet. I feel like it got better because nobody's starting. I mean, like people still complain about like the places we go sometimes, but like I feel like now people are like starting to like get better with like how like the voting works, and like when people have like like what is it, a minority vote, we can like figure out what to do for those people, compromise, you know. But I do, yeah, Thomas, you have something to say?
So, it's not particularly because no one was going where I wanted, but it was hard because, well, I got 3 hours of sleep that night, but that's kind of not part of it. And then also, we were at this playground on this like spinning thing, and everyone kept pushing me off of it. That was a bit annoying, but I have never had a day where it was like actually very difficult to like no one went where. So I usually just go wherever anyone else goes, and sometimes I'll say somewhere where I want to go. So I've never
Can you tell us like how often your option gets picked?
well, I don't know. I can't remember right now when I think like a few times I've said one and they've like I don't know exactly how often, but
All right.
I think that's also like part of the facilitator role, or like the adult in the squad role, is like keep an eye on those dynamics and to like call it out when you see it happening. I feel like you see someone's voice is constantly being ignored, to bring that up to the group and talk about how we can adjust practices and deal with it and make sure that we're, because a lot of times it's, you know, it's just, we're all people, we're humans, and sometimes you're just oblivious to what's going on. Like if other people aren't happy, if you're happy about something, right? So once it's calls their attention, I find that like they're actually pretty responsible about it, and will like try to be more conscientious in how they're making those decisions the next time.
Someone says,
Magnolia has a hand-
oh wait, what did you say? You can go.
I think Magnolia has a hand up as well to answer the.
Oh, if you had your hand up, you can speak now.
So back to the hardest day part. The hardest day probably was my friend brought their friend, and I think they triggered a lot of us. Really just did not care about our boundaries, and it was really tiring. It was really exhausting. It was a really hard day for a lot of us, I think.
You know what? That does remind me. I think the hardest day was the
Yeah.
Jalil day. We, to elaborate on that more, we saw this kid at the library, and we thought, well, some of us thought, oh, this would be pretty cool if we brought him along with us, because he came over to us and was like, "Oh, what is this?" He seemed interested, and we brought him along, and never again. He was horrible. He was out of order. So I don't think we're gonna ever do that ever again. People are traumatized. Someone says in a very
What is
calm.
it?
Oh wait, would you? No, Issa, you can.
Okay. He was a schooled kid that we thought it would be good, but I mean, we were in the library. He was interacting with everybody, so he wanted to come along, and everybody wanted him to come along. But then, yeah, he stepped on every single
Well,
word.
okay, I wouldn't say everybody. It was only like a few people. I don't want to push down everybody. It was
Okay.
definitely just a select few people that wanted to come, including me, because I thought he was. I was like, oh, he skateboards. He looks cool. He was a menace. Oh my goodness, it was actually scary. So yeah, it says somebody says in a very car-centric city, is there a carpool setup with adult flying squads facilitators? No, I don't think so. I don't think anybody has that, right? Nobody has carpools in their flying squad, right? Because for us, it's
I
just
think it
public
would
transportation.
I think it would be amazing if we did, but
That would be
no.
cool. Cairo would appreciate that. Everybody knows that. But
As someone who, sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but
no, that's fine.
as someone who is pretty close to starting one, but also we live in like the public transport here is really horrible. The carpool setup we would probably like meet here. Like we had talked about this a little bit. We would probably just meet at our learning center and everybody who was coming, and a pretty basic carpool setup. I don't think there's anything different.
For us, our group was just way too big to have a car, though. Julia, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, can you hear me? I know I'm a
Yeah, we
little
can hear
laggy.
you. We can hear you though. You're perfectly fine. You sound perfectly fine.
Oh, all right. For our flying squad, I think the point is to not kind of worry about the driving part, more worry about the walking. Like, I guess the whole point for ours is to, to fly as not as far as possible, but to hit as many places as we can in one day. So we're less worried about the car part and more worried about a mutual agreement of how many places we can get to, and everyone not giving out on us because it's too cold out or whatever, because we've had that quite a few times where people just kind of give up because it's too cold.
That's
Too
true.
cold and you have bare legs and flip-flops on. We if we go to sometimes we choose different destinations, so we don't always, like, we typically meet at our public library, the downtown public library that we have here, but like we recently went to a suburb to go to some thrift stores, and we just like found a spot to get dropped off at and then found a spot to get picked up at, and like just flew around there, right? Like I think we did 2 thrift stops and then ended up in a diner for lunch randomly and did some snow angels along the way back. So yeah, even without like going along a lot of places, sometimes we picked a park that has a river that we like to go in, and we'll get picked up and dropped off at that park, and we're not really like flying into businesses and stuff. Those days just look different.
All right, let's see. Let's see. Raj says, "Oh wait, okay, you already said that one. We have a lot of things here. Any more questions? What's
I
the
think
best way
somebody asked, best way to start to join a flying
join a
squad.
flying squad?
Mhm.
Cause let me think. I feel like there's like if you find the websites, like us for like Brook and the Apple, I think there's
Yeah, if
like
you
a
go to,
way you can sign up there, right?
yeah, if
'Cause
you go to flyingsquads.org, that'll direct you to all of the flying squads all around the country, and you could find their individual links to their sign up pages.
I
I
didn't know
can,
about that, so that's a first for me, guys. Let's see.
it's a whole network.
If you guys
Karen
want,
had her hand up.
if somebody has the link, you can put that in the chat. Uh, let's see. This is kind of an odd question, maybe. But how do you characterize kinds of relationships you build in flying squads, like friends, like a form of family, or something entirely new? I feel like flying squad dynamic is kind of different from the rest. Sarah, you want to say something?
I definitely want to hear the rest of your answer, and then I'll go after you're finished. I want to hear about what are the relationships in squads. Seems really important.
Usually it's more like a group of friends. People have, like friends that they're tighter with than others. Like, for example, on our flying squad, we have Shalem and Javier. They do things in a group. So like we have people that are like better friends than others, but everybody gets along well. Nobody's like enemies or nemesis with each other. We do have like jokes that people are each other's like children, like Charlie is Seth's son or something. So that's something. But yeah, it's just everybody gets along. Nobody's like jabbing at each other. Everybody's usually on good terms in Flying Squad. We see each other as I wouldn't say like a community, more like just a great group of friends. But Sarah, you can now say your answer or say your question.
Sure. One thing that we keep kind of bumping up against in conversations with folks who might be interested in joining a squad as we are trying to get ours off the ground, is this misconception both among, I think, kids who have been in school or even who are even homeschooled and maybe not unschooling, and their parents. They think that squads are field trips. So would anyone who's in a squad be willing to kind of really unpack how this is absolutely not just a series of field trips, and also maybe go into how this is actually sort of a form of activism?
If anybody would like to answer that, you can do that now. I feel like I've been answering a lot of questions so far.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I mean, first of all, I think when I think of field trips, I think of an adult planned excursion where you're like sending out a permission slip and here's all the details and this is how much it's going to cost. And flying squad is the opposite of that. Really, like you're coming in, you're committing to just being together for that amount of time. We have no plan normally at all. We're coming up with it on the fly. It's entirely youth led, right? People who in the group are participating in that. And that in itself is activism, right? We're flipping the script on that a lot. Our whole educational experience is giving you the freedom of deciding how you're going to spend your time and how you're going to make decisions together as a group, which is huge, right? Because what we're committing to is we're going to spend 4 hours together. And that means you might get to do the thing that you're most excited about, or as Josiah mentioned, and it's what the kids have mentioned, sometimes you're going to end up doing a thing you're not particularly into, but that's part of it too, right? As a member of the group, you're going to try something that might not directly appeal to you, but might be awesome, or it might suck, and you might need to share that feedback with the group later. And that's all part of group dynamics and learning from that experience and advocating for yourself in the future, and advocating for yourself in that moment, and being flexible to understand that the needs of your whole group need to be met. And the activism piece also comes out like, a lot of people expect kids to be seen and not heard, and to seen in very specific places. Like you're going to run into a kid during the work day you expect for them to be in a very orderly school group, walking in 2 lines, maybe to a specific destinations, or you're going to see them in museums. They're led by a teacher who's telling them what's important about this space that they're at. And flying squads are not like that. You're gonna see us out in public in spaces you might not expect to see us. Like, I think this is a pretty universal flying squad thing that we all like going to IKEA and being pretty ridiculous in IKEA and using those rooms as playhouses, giant playhouses, and taking teenagers out of, like, I think teenagers often feel like they have to be mini adults when they're out in society. And when they're out in squad, I see that completely vanish. Like, they are children 100%. They're very playful. The way they interact in space when there aren't little people that they feel like they're supposed to be modeling for is entirely different. And I loved all the hijinks that ensues in that moment, all the playfulness. Yeah. So I'm talking about the wish you had an IKEA close by. Totally. IKEA is super helpful when you're in a flying squad. It's a great place. There's food, there's playhouses. It's wonderful. Yeah. Or you see us, I think another commonality between many of us is the boba thing. I think they're all really into going to get boba. So maybe at the end of the day, although they're going to report to their parent, is what we did is, we walked around the city and we got boba tea. That can be challenging, I think, for parents who are looking for, like, oh, my kid is going out to have an enriching experience where they're going to a museum and they're like learning all of these things. And this is what I can tell my parents about how accomplished my kid is. And that's not what's happening. Does anybody want to add?
I think that's how it usually goes. IKEA is a very good spot. You're right about that one. But for us, it is really far. I see why. But everybody should have an IKEA near them just for flying squad. Somebody says.
I see Magnolia's hand up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, you can input if you need to.
So to the family thing, I think, like, the family or friends or like relationships in flying squad, I kind of consider everyone in flying squad like kind of my family. I don't know what, for me at least, I think a lot of us feel that way. But when I'm with them, I'm just like, yeah, these are my people. This is my family.
I can see that. I can really see how that goes. I feel like some people can see that as like a family almost.
I think part of that, kind of coming back to like Raj's question about our challenging days and stuff, I think our most challenging days are when interpersonal conflict comes up and we let it come up and we figure out how to get through it. And that's really unusual. I think we've all talked about how a new person would enter the squad, but there are times too when a new person has entered and it has come with some discomfort that we've had to get through, and we've had to like decide, is this person, like your one guy that one day, like he was toxic, you knew it in a day, he was a menace, you said, and sometimes we've had to decide, like, is this person going to be like that? Like, are they a menace, or is this something we can work through with some boundaries and with some communication? And I think for me, that's why it's different than a typical like group of friends that you're hanging out with. Like, we really get through the conflict together. And I think as an adult coming into flying squads, I'm not sure I even really understood that it wasn't a field trip experience. I mean, I knew it wasn't, but like, it really we had to experience it together to figure out what it was going to feel like and look like for our group. And also the activism. Like, I remember the first time I watched one of these, and it was after our squad had started, and Brie and David, I think, said something about going to the mall in Portland. And I was kind of like, oh, phew, like, we're allowed to go to the mall. Like, we don't have to be like out protesting to be activists, because like what we're doing is a form of activism. And because we're a group that talks about things that maybe typical adult student like groups don't talk about, like, we talk about things that then produce in our actions just naturally and organically. Like, one day we did a bunch of what did we do? Note cards. It was like National Coming Out Day or Pronouns Day or something. And we'd meet in the library. So we like did a bunch of note cards and like stuck them in random books that just say like, whatever your pronouns are, we love you. Or, so like that was maybe more a direct form of activism. But I think just even being out and showing people that, like Jean said, like kids can exist in the world during the day and not be in this box or institution that we say they should be in.
Another question that we got earlier that I would want to hear more what this means. What are the best forms of propaganda? What is that? And like, what propaganda are you talking about?
Okay, that was my question, and that's kind of poorly worded, but there's not a lot of people. Another thing is there's not a lot of people here who do SDE, or specifically like, the kind that would be kind of like, we have a lot of homeschoolers, but not a lot of unschoolers. I guess unschooling is homeschooling, but but like, what are some ways you got people on board?
Usually it's like the parents that sign them up. Then it's like then it's like then it's like up to the children to kind of convince them to stay. So you have to make like good impressions on people, or it's like if like, because we never like got like actively got people to like to SDE, like self to direct educate. But like, I guess right now we're like kind of doing that. Like we're doing this. And we're like telling people like, this is a thing that people do that you can also do with your kids. So I guess like telling people about it, like I guess like getting the word out, like it's real, because I didn't really know about it until now. Issa, you want to say something?
Yes. Is your question because you would like a squad to start in your that's what's happening?
Yeah.
That there is normally a lot, like some other facilitator want to talk about this too, because there's normally conversations between the parents and the facilitator before there's putting the word out, and several groups of homeschoolers. There are some things that are done for the word to get out. In our situation, like we also have our center, which is Apple Academy, that helps us. And not every single parent in our squad knew what SDE was before they were in our squad. Like they came to us to have a field trip day, and then they stayed with us, and then we got the parents on board on that in that way. Like, oh, it's a community building, it's a this, it's a that. We don't necessarily need to, like in our squad, we don't necessarily need to make everybody be okay with unschooling, but by practice end up getting okay with unschooling because they are getting some experience and the parents can see that. So it doesn't have to happen it can happen in practice and not just before, Okay.
If it's okay if I ask another question, but another thing that's somewhat related is how many people did you start off with? Like, what would be a good starting number of people? Because
3.
Like
3?
any number of people is fine.
Any number of people is fine. 3, 4.
Like
Totally. We started with 4 and just 4 from our center. Like you guys are part of a center, right, Randolph? Yes, we started with just 4 from our center, and sometimes we've had additional people over the years, and sometimes it's still, like a small group from just our ALC, and that works fine.
Yeah. I think what I was supposed to do from earlier was put this in the chat. It's like a microfund thing from, let me see what it was about again.
Yeah, there's
For
some
flying
funds available right
squads.
now.
So it's a microfund for people trying to start flying squads. So if you're trying to start one, I think this is something you should fill out. And I think they will figure out something for you to start your flying squad.
Yeah, it's micro grants from Brooklyn Apple Academy who got some funding
Okay.
through Bella. And you
Oh,
could apply directly to Brooklyn Apple Academy and they will hook you up with a micro grant to help start a squad.
thank you. You said that better than me. Better than I could.
Do you have that link, Josiah? Do you want me to post it?
I posted the link in the chat. It's in the
Okay,
chat
great.
right now. Do you run into problems where people sign up and say they're going to show up, but then they don't because of bad weather? Or yes, all the time.
Can I answer this one?
Yes, you can answer this one definitely.
So in our squad, there's a lot of things like that, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a problem because they're just not coming because they don't want to come. And then and that's fine with everyone. It was their choice to do that. So they cannot come if they don't want to, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's a problem. Yeah.
I like how you said it's like not a problem because it's not a problem. It's just something that happens. Because personally, my sister doesn't come during the winter, but she would gladly come during the warmer months of the year. But nobody sees it as a problem. They just accept it for what it is. Because it's not a problem if you have a smaller group. It's just something that happens. So yeah. Not necessarily a problem, but that does happen. People don't come because of bad weather. Because they're not like entirely obligated to be there. Okay. If there's anything I missed, you can say that now. Or if there's any new questions, you can put that in the chat now. But I think we covered most of everything today.
Yeah, we only have 15 minutes left.
Yeah,
so
I
if
know.
there
So
are
that's why I'm trying to make sure if there's anything else anybody wants to say it now before it's too late. And our demise is here. But yeah. Do flying squads have agreements that co-create? What is
Don't
I-
understand this
yeah,
question.
I don't understand the
We
question
do.
either.
We made some community agreements together as a group. It actually kind of emerged out of some conflict, I think. Magnolia, Thomas, Julian, you might remember better. And we just realized we needed to kind of put just get some things out there. We have a notebook. We don't use it very often. They live in there. We haven't revisited. We just talked this week about we should probably pull it out and take a look. They were things like basic respect things, using people's preferred names and pronouns. Magnolia and Julian, Thomas, jump in if you've got your memories are younger and better than mine.
We've had a lot of conflict just because we were close with them as friends through the summer and stuff has happened. And then we kind of brought that conflict into Flying Squad, which I think that's the main problem. But I think we've mostly gotten through that.
But we made some agreements at the beginning of this year when we had some new flyers join our group, right? We kind of had to navigate that.
Yeah.
They were basically just kind of like respect tenets that we all agreed on, felt good to us.
Yeah, definitely.
Now that I hear the question, how it's like supposed to be answered, specific agreements, I guess we have like for certain people, like one of our students doesn't like to be handsy. They're kind of a germaphobe, so it's like, yeah, just giving my personal space. So like for her, we give her personal space. I think that's like mostly it for like agreements. There's nothing I can really remember of like a huge conflict during the group or in the group that we had to make like specific agreements on.
There was a moment last year that we had
You mean
the meeting.
yeah, the meeting of
Yeah,
the
and
that's
then
true.
yeah, and then so people were they were interested in being the kids were interested in being the ones that write the votes and be part of like do all this process. They were feeling that they wanted even more control, and then so we talked about that. We also talked about like maybe when someone has been asking the same thing for forever and nobody like it hasn't happened, maybe making concessions. And I think, but we never wrote those things down, but those got into the culture. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like last week when Solomon was like asking for the board cake game cafe for all these weeks, and then we finally did it today. And it'll be really good. Do you ever go into places outside the city, like nature rural areas? Personally, in New York, there's like there's no like specific nature here outside the city, other than if you're going upstate, but that's not like that's way too far. But we do go to the parks. And those are like we go to the big parks like Prospect Park, Central Park. We've been to Central Park. And those are like basically like the nature of New York, and that's usually what we go to do if we want to see like nature of some sort. But yeah, we used to go to Prospect Park a lot. We probably go a lot soon because it's gonna get warmer. But like, if anybody else wants to put their input on this question, you can do that now. Yeah.
Yeah, we tend not to go out of the city for squad days. And we're also part of an ALC, a lot of us. And so in that group, we spend a lot of time exploring the city's natural areas. But in Flying Squad, we tend to stay urban and walkable or public transportation accessible are normally our goals.
Someone just said, I remember Fly Squad GR. Where is GR? Where is that?
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Oh, okay. Paddle boating one time last year. I didn't know you could go in the water on a Flying Squad day. That's foreign to us. Because I mean, personally, I can't swim, so like I wouldn't go in the water. But like that's cool. Paddle boating sounds fun.
Magnolia asked what an ALC is. It's an Agile Learning Center, which our Flying Squad is loosely affiliated with our ALC also. We did go paddleboarding last year, and we picked, usually it comes up as somebody's like favorite place. And Magnolia, that was actually you guys, right? Wanted to take us to your hometown and your favorite bookstore. So we made a day out of it, and there was a little lake in the town, and we had a paddleboard, so we got out on it. And those are the days that we usually have to coordinate some sort of carpool or transportation, because not everybody has access to get out of the city. So we might meet at like our public library destination, and then have a couple drivers to get to somewhere, and then we're dropped off and picked up at the same place usually.
Julian, you have something to say?
I got reminded of a conflict that is happening with our group. There are some of us that want to do a group camping trip this year. And there are some of us that are not on board with that. So we're still trying to figure out how that's gonna work and if it's gonna happen and where. So that's to be determined, but we're working through that currently. Has any other squads done any like overnight things or camping or anything like that?
Personally, our current squad, no. I remember they did like have a camping thing back then. I think they like went camping one time.
There
Or
was, or
yeah,
like before COVID, there were a few times like there were summer camps that were more related to the homeschool center that were like with, but they weren't really like flying squad things. It was more just summer camps that the homeschool center was doing.
okay.
I'm not sure if anyone from Seattle is on the call, but I think that Seattle has done a camping trip or does maybe an annual camping trip.
It's maybe like making it one time thing. Maybe that could help with making it do it one time or once a year. Maybe you could do it like that. We have how much more time? 6 more minutes. Thank you, Beatrice. Until this is over. So any like last inputs and last words, any last questions? We can get them in as soon as possible before we have to go back to the main room. But we did do a lot of coverage today.
There are podcast lovers out there. David and Bria's podcast, which is called Rethinking SDE, had an episode on flying squads, where some of the flying squad facilitators talked about it, kind of what we do and what we see our role as facilitators, at least.
That's nice. Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Raj, very much. For the experience, sharing experiences with us. Appreciate everyone sharing your thoughts with Flying Squad. Our Flying Squads enjoyed this. Peace. Yeah, thank you everybody for the questions. This is very fun. This is my first SDE weekend, and this was pretty fun. This was very. I got to learn a lot about the other flying squads, so that's nice. I'm gonna put this in the chat one more time. The grant, just in case anybody missed it. So if you're trying to start your own flying squad, you can get a grant from the Berkeley Apple Academy or what's the other one? Gene, you can explain it again.
The Vela is an
The
organization
Vela.
that gives grants to self-directed startups, self-directed organizations.
So yeah, if you're trying to start a flying squad in your city, you can try to sign up and see if you can get that grant. Thanks Josiah for moderating. Thanks for sharing everybody sharing their experiences. No problem. I want to say thank you to everybody that like gave their input, but like wasn't necessarily a part of the panel, because everybody's input was great to hear. That is awesome to hear from everyone.